Life number 5, France. Tayo had a lot to discuss with his ancestors after his brief, sad life in Italy. He had now seen how both poor animals and humans lived, and it gave him a lot to think about. It seemed very wrong to him that the rich folk had so much and the poor so little, but perhaps there was another side to the question which he felt he had to find out. Surely there must be someone amongst those grand nobles who could have feelings for a little cat. So, Tayo and his ancestors agreed that he should make his next appearance on the blue planet at the other end of the social scale. Tayo's new mother was long-haired, snowy white, and spotlessly clean. She lived in a basket that was padded with silks and satins, and her meals were brought to her on a silver tray. "I am queen among cats," she told her son, for Tayo was once again a young Tom. "And you are therefore a prince. Long-haired, pure white cats like us are worth a great deal of money, and soon a great noble person will choose you as his or her pet. Let us give some thought to the possibilities. Now, there is the Countess de Orléans, or the Comte de Requevat. Well, perhaps not him, come to think of it, as I've heard he has a bad temper. But the Duc de Boulogne is a kindly sort, and his wife is even kindlier." As Tayo grew up, his coat became longer, silkier, and wider, and Abel and Tessadaire, the two servants who looked after all the cats, would brush him regularly and comb sweet-smelling herbs through his fur. Nor were Tayo and his mother the only cats around. There was Lucifer, who was very fluffy and very black, the shy Gazette, Rita, of the extra-loud purr, Perruque, and Racan, so named because their mother had given birth to them in the wig of the Marquise de Racan, also Piram, Thisbe, and Sumis, who was something of a favorite. Tayo's mother wore a silk collar with a real gold medallion hanging from it. Her own name, Mignon, was engraved on one side, and on the other it said, "The property of Cardinal Armand John du Plessis, Duc de Richelieu." It was a bright sunny morning when Tayo was first introduced to the cardinal. His Eminence, for that was what he was called, had not been feeling too well, and he always claimed that nothing restored his spirits more than the sight of young kittens playing on his bed. Abel placed the small bundle of white fluff on the broad counterpane, and Tayo found himself looking into a pair of steely blue eyes, deeply set in a lined face. "Ah, what ecstasy!" the cardinal exclaimed, and as he fondled the little fellow and tickled him under the chin, Tayo could not help noticing the ring on his finger that had a lovely blue stone in it. Now Tayo always loved blue stones, and this one somehow reminded him of the big blue stone that the high priest wore on a chain round his neck in the old country. The cardinal had a small, pointed beard which twitched when he smiled. This made Tayo laugh, and he purred loudly, which seemed to please the great man. After Tayo had frolicked for a while on the big bed, the cardinal said he felt much better and bade Abel take the little kitten back to his mother. "This is a very fine cat," he commented. "I shall save him as a present for someone very special. We shall see." Life with the cardinal was both interesting and intriguing. If only a cat could write, here was history in the making. Tayo overheard conversations of great importance about other countries and their nobles, and he also learned about the god that people worshipped in those parts. But he was a sad and wounded god who was hung up on 2 pieces of wood and Tayo couldn't help wondering why, if people loved this god, they treated him so badly. Perhaps their god liked it that way, but Tayo didn't somehow think so. Food at the Cardinal's palace was very good indeed, and Tayo was rather upset one day when the cook scolded one of the servants for stealing the head of a trout. The poor man had apparently taken it for one of his own children. So Tayo took the head off the next fish he was given and proudly presented it to the servant, who fled in fear at the sight. Oh dear, how could a little cat help people when they didn't speak his language? Tayo's mother taught him how to protect their master against bad influences. She would sit on the Cardinal's lap when he was dealing with difficult or scheming people. She was able to read their thoughts and make her dislike felt in some very obvious way, like fuffing at them or growling quietly. Of course, these were all things that Tayo had learned in the old country, so they came very easily to him. One day, the Cardinal seemed particularly pleased, for he was expecting a visit from his nephew, who was both a priest and a scholar, for whom he had a great deal of affection and respect. Tayo, his mother, and 3 of the other cats were sitting in the Cardinal's room when the guest arrived. He was a young man with fair hair and deep blue eyes. In fact, he reminded Tayo of someone, but at that moment the little cat wasn't quite sure who. "Ah, Henry, we welcome you. Come, take some refreshment with us." The 2 men embraced each other warmly, and a servant brought in a silver tray which had tall jugs on it and a plate of lovely cakes. As the servant poured some liquid from one of the jugs into a pretty cup, the Cardinal continued, "But why must you hide yourself away in the old country when you could do so well at court?" He pointed to a leather-bound volume that was on the table beside him. "After all, this treatise of yours is most profound and would surely win you many important friends in Paris." The younger man answered quietly, "Uncle, I could not take the stress of life in the city. It is because I live quietly that I am able to think so clearly and therefore write as I do." "Oh well," said the Cardinal, "have it your own way, but the offer is open." He paused and selected a cake from the plate. "And have you thought any more of my offer to make you a bishop? It would be a simple matter for me to make arrangements for the Diocese of Lyons, for example. You only have to say the word." "Thank you, Uncle, but no, I am not cut out for church politics, nor do I have any wish to become caught up in Vatican intrigues. The life of a humble scholar suits me much better." "Then how can I reward you on behalf of the Church for your excellent work?" The Cardinal's eyes fell upon Tayo. "Aha! I have the very thing. Here, Henry, take this little fellow. He is a fine cat and much prized. In fact, 2 duchesses I know are both hoping to receive him as a birthday gift from me, but they are frivolous females and would not appreciate the finer points of such a wise animal." He lifted Tayo gently from the cushion on which he had been sitting and handed him to his nephew. As soon as the new hands touched him, Tayo felt a familiar twinge. Could it possibly be? The man lifted him to his face, and they both looked into each other's eyes. It was his beloved Murry from Egypt, one of the crystal people. Tayo was so full of joy that he purred as loudly as he could, and Henry cuddled him close to his heart. "A better gift than one of God's innocent creatures you could not have made to me, Uncle. I shall cherish him for as long as I live." The Cardinal seemed very pleased at this. After they had finished their food and drink and talked a lot more, Abel brought a fine, soft basket for Tayo, who was then taken to the apartment in the place where Henry would be staying during his visit to Paris. That night, Henry allowed Tayo to sit on his bed, and the two talked together because they both understood thought language. Henry told Tayo many things about the world and its peoples, and about how things were run on the blue planet. Henry didn't think everything was as it should be either, and he wept when Tayo told him about his life in Italy. It seemed that he, too, had had a similar experience in another place and time. A few days later, they set out for the large house in the country where Henry's family lived, and where he had a whole wing to himself. Although they would often walk in the woods together, Tayo seldom saw any others of his kind, but he could sometimes hear the kitchen cats mewing. On one occasion, he came across a wild, striped female who lived in the barn and who, no doubt, had some beautiful white kittens not long after their meeting. As Tayo was so well looked after, he was able to forget about the needs of his body and concentrate on learning the ways of people. Sometimes he and Henry would talk late into the night, and both of them would find it difficult to go to sleep afterwards because there were so many things that troubled them about the world and the things that went on in it. But there were happy times, too, when Tayo would sit quietly on Henry's desk while he studied the big leather-bound books in the library or wrote down very serious thoughts about the past and the present. But both Tayo and Henry knew that the life of a little cat was often shorter than that of a human, so the odds were that one day Tayo would have to leave his friend. And so it was. One evening, just as the sun was setting over the lake and the trees in the far woods were nodding off to sleep, Tayo himself lay down on his dear friend's bed and quickly slipped away to join his ancestors. The quiet, gentle priest gently buried the little body under his favorite tree and placed a large stone above it upon which was engraved, "Mon petit Charlemagne, who was as wise as his namesake, and whom I loved more than anyone." And that stone still stands to this day, although you would need to search hard through the undergrowth of a certain forest in France to find it.